University of Notre Dame, and also I'm an ethnic Buryat anti-war activist. And this work is about the ethnic position and the ethnic inequalities in the Russia side death toll in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I also will talk about the 2022 mobilization aftermath and the so-called warlike or bloodthirsty savage stereotype which has formed since 2022 towards people in particular of my ethnicity. I'm an ethnic Buryat, and in general towards probably Asian Russians. So it is well known by now that, first of all, Russia's ethnic minorities, generally speaking, are overrepresented among the Russian side war casualties. And for specific Asian ethnic minorities such as Kazakhs, Buryats, and Tuvans, the per capita fatalities were 5 to 10 times greater than for ethnic Russians as of September 2022. Which was actually addressed by at least two research works I'm aware of. It's our previous work where we first started analyzing the ethnic composition of the Russian side casualties, and the work by Alexei Besudnov, where he used an AI algorithm, a machine learning algorithm, in order to classify the names in the obituaries, the names of the deceased, by their ethnicity. So, and the goal of this work is to conduct a more longitudinal study and to see what has changed since that time, since September 2022, because we know that in September 2022, Putin announced the so-called partial mobilization, which obviously changed the geography of the war casualties in Russia, and also such events as Russian offensive of the winter 2023 and the winter 2023-24 happened, which also changed during which the deployment policies of the Russian military leadership were changed. So this is what the geographic distribution of the casualties looks like now. So this is the per capita, the top 10 regions with the highest per capita death toll. And it is still Tuva and Buryatia still the leaders. And also we can see that there are a lot of ethnic, so-called ethnic regions among these 10, and also many of them actually belong to the either Siberia or the Far East, so-called Far East Federal District. But if we look at this table, we can see that actually current casualties which occurred or were confirmed in February 2024 look very different. So it's mostly either Volga region, Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, or Ural region like Sverdlovsk or Chelyabinsk. So it's the current losses, the current casualties occurring right now, they are quite different actually. So in our previous work, we tried to map the number of per capita casualties to plot it against the model income in region, and we did see some correlation, but we discovered that actually the presence of the military units, the militarization of the region is more important. It outweighs the economic factors. And also the deployment policies play a very important role, because if we look at the map, actually the Eastern Military District coincides, its borders coincide with the Far East Federal District. But this is the biggest military district in Russia, but it is the least populated federal district. So it is the highest number of military units per capita. So it's only natural that 5 of the top 10 regions by per capita war casualties would be in this area. But during the recent Russian offensive operation, during the winter 2023-24, the assault of Avdiivka, for instance, actually it was a central military district which was active in that operation and not the eastern military district. And that's why we see such a difference between the current losses and the total losses. So, so the conclusion here is actually the geographic distribution of military bases within Russia and the deployment policies are actually more important than some such economic factors as modal income. But this is actually the, so how we analyze the casualties. So the information comes from the obituaries published in either on the social networks or in local media in Russia. And these obituaries were collected by several activist groups. One of them famously collaborates with Mediazona and BBC News Russian. And also we have our own groups of ethnic activists, ethnic and regional activists who collect this information, such as obituaries or social media posts about soldiers killed in this war for their region or for their ethnic groups. So, and we can see that indeed ethnic Buryats and Tuvans are among the most overrepresented groups, yet this small number, actually small number ethnic groups of the north, such as Chukchi and Nenets, are even more overrepresented, and the most overrepresented group is actually Telengits. It's a small indigenous ethnic group in Altai. And if we look at the three regions where ethnic Buryats live, we see a very different picture. So it first of all, it strongly depends on the region. The per capita death toll is the lowest in Irkutsk Oblast, and probably it's just because there are no military units there, and also it belongs to a different military district. And also, we can see that if in Buryatia, actually the percentage of Buryats among the casualties is, it corresponds to percentage of Buryats among the population of the region. In Transbaikalia and Irkutsk region, where Buryats are a minority, it's very different. They are very significantly overrepresented in both Transbaikalia and Irkutsk Oblast. And it actually coincides with like subjective perception of discrimination by local Buryat population in this region. And also it correlates with the loss of ethnic autonomy in those regions. And in some obituaries, in biographies of the fallen soldiers, it's pretty obvious that they struggled to find a job after the Aga Buryat autonomous okrug was abolished. So this is the graph which shows the dynamics, the longitudinal data, and it is obvious that after September 2022, after the mobilization and when the subsequent offensive operation, Russian offensive operation started, the level of casualties grew very significantly. And it was probably the most painful for Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, and probably that's the reason why Yakutia was the only Siberian ethnic region where there were really significant protests against mobilization. And also, if we look at this part of the graph, this peak responds actually to the offensive, Russian offensive of this past winter, the assault of Avdiivka, where the central military district was involved. And because of that, the peaks are more pronounced. For instance, for Tuva, which belongs to the central military district for Altai Republic, and also Tuva and Altai Republic, and also for Irkutsk region, which also belongs to so the red line actually is Buryatsk Irkutsk region. So. And if we compare this curve to the general Russian losses, we see that actually it more or less, the peaks, the position of the peaks more or less coincide with it, but it's very different in terms of that apparently the eastern military district was mostly involved in, suffered the greatest losses during the very beginning of the invasion, but the central military district apparently was involved in the offense operation during the winter 2023-24. So the most alarming conclusion probably of this work is actually the small number of peoples of the North Siberia and Russia's Far East were hit the hardest, both by the mobilization and the war in general. Because, for instance, both Nenets and Chukchi people are overrepresented within their regions, and also they are overrepresented among the convicts. So the convicts who were Nenets are overrepresented among the convicts who were recruited from prisons. And though, for instance, the Nenets Autonomous Okrug is economically prosperous region, unfortunately the indigenous population does not benefit from that economic prosperity at all. So it's mostly oil and gas, and for the indigenous population, it mostly just destroys the environment and hurts their traditional way of life, but does not benefit, unfortunately, them economically. And based on the obituaries collected by the ethnic anti-war activists, telling us that Chukchi have the highest death toll among all ethnic groups we studied. And according to the Botany International Indigenous Fund, in some indigenous settlements, a small number of people of the North and Far East, the authorities attempted to draft up to 100% of the adult male population. And also, one more topic of my talk is the so-called warlike savage stereotype against ethnic Buryats and Tuvans, and baseless war crime allegations such as Busha massacre, which was blamed on the ethnic Buryats, and this narrative was spread by Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church himself, and also it appeared in Mikhail Zigar's recent book. So, however, it has been established beyond any doubt that it was the paratroopers from Russian city of Pskov who were responsible for the Bucha massacre. However, it didn't stop the public figures from spreading this narrative. And likewise, ethnic Tuvans were accused of holding the civilians in a makeshift concentration camp in Yagidny, Chernihiv region. Later on, Ukrainian investigative journalists established that the motor rifle regiment from the Russian city of Yekaterinburg was responsible specifically for holding people under the concentration camp conditions in the school basement. Okay, so, and very recently, an American-born Kremlin propaganda mouthpiece, Russell Bentley, was kidnapped and killed by Russian troops in Donetsk region, and the media right now, as we speak, is spreading the false narrative that troops from Buryatia are responsible, though the actual perpetrators were from the local so-called Donetsk People's Republic military unit. So looks like every time when something inconvenient for the Kremlin's propaganda is happening, it gets blamed on the ethnic minorities. And I think it resonates with the previous talk, because this fuzzy identity, when it's not clear who counts as Russians or Rossiani, is used actually in such cases in order to avoid responsibility or shift responsibility. Because let's say ethnic minorities, Asians, Buryats, they are not true Rossiani. Therefore, if they are to blame, then Russia is not to blame. And this is precisely what Pope Francis was trying to convey in his infamous interview, right? That they are from Russia, but not of Russian traditions. Therefore, Russians are not to blame. So, and I think it is one of the tools actually for the Kremlin to shift the responsibility for the war crimes. And I'm really, really glad that the previous speaker described this issue, because I think it's very important. So, and I strongly believe that the motivation behind the Russian anti-war influencers blaming Buryats and other non-Russians is also to shift the responsibility, and it also correlates with the notion that actually the anti-Putin and hence anti-war public in Russia tends to be more xenophobic, actually, right? And this type of narrative, when it's non-Russians or Buryats, Asians who are responsible for the war crimes, really resonates well with them, probably for this reason. So, and I think it also very closely connected to the so-called horde legacy myth, or the Mongolian legacy, that anything which is bad in Russia is just a consequence of Mongolian conquest in the 13th century. So, and in the public opinion, it just transforms into the idea that we are good people, but whatever we have bad is from Asians, actually. And again, those war crime allegations against Asian Russians, against Buryats, they are, they fall within this stereotype of this mythology very well, because Buryats, as we know, are a Mongolic nation and has their direct descendants, so to say, of the horde, and therefore they represent the horde legacy in Russia. So it looks very logical for within this type of thinking. So, well, I just skip the conclusions because I'm short on time, but thank you very much for your attention.